Justin Fields is going to be haunted by Joey Bosa for a while. And who can blame him? From the very first snap to the final whistle, Bosa was living in the backfield like he had bought property there. It wasn't just one of those games where a defensive end racks up empty pressure stats. This was a performance that disrupted timing, crushed confidence, and quite literally knocked the Jets' offense out of rhythm from the jump. If you're a Bills fan, this was a dream, not just because of the scoreline, but because of the tone the defense set. They came in angry, aggressive, and with something to prove after a lackluster Week 1 showing. And boy, did they prove it. Let's just call it what it was, a demolition. And the best part? Josh Allen didn't need to be Superman. He didn't have to hurdle defenders or sling 40-yard bombs while running for his life. This was one of those rare games where the defense said, "We've got this," and they meant it. From the opening drive, the Bills set the tone. They forced a quick 3-and-out and gave the ball right back to Josh, who calmly went to work. But again, this was never about the offense stealing the spotlight. This game was about Bosa and company making a statement, a loud, punishing statement. And you could see it in Justin Fields' eyes. He was rattled. He missed a wide-open Garrett Wilson early, and things just snowballed from there. By the time he left the game, evaluated for a concussion, his stat line looked more like a typo than a real performance. Fewer than 40 yards through the air, one big scramble, and a whole lot of panic. It wasn't just bad quarterback play. It was a young QB getting completely overwhelmed by a pass rush that smelled blood from the first quarter on. And leading the charge was a rejuvenated, smiling, and absolutely relentless Joey Bosa. This is exactly what the Bills hoped for when they signed Bosa in the offseason, a veteran with elite tools, finally healthy, finally having fun again. Talking after the game, Bosa was in great spirits. You could tell he felt good, not just physically, but mentally. He talked about how miserable the last couple of years were, not in terms of locker rooms or teammates, but just the frustration of not being at full strength. Now, he's flying off the edge with purpose, stacking up pressures, hits, sacks, and forcing turnovers. The strip sack in the first quarter felt like a turning point, not just in this game, but maybe for the whole season. And it's not just about sacks that show up on the stat sheet. Bosa was wrecking plays before they had a chance to develop. Fields was constantly flushed out, forced to check down, or just flat-out dumped before his first read. It's the kind of performance that reminds you what the early season version of Von Miller looked like when he first arrived in Buffalo. That kind of impact player who changes the game, closes it out, and becomes a nightmare for offensive coordinators. You can't scheme around that when he's on. And he wasn't alone. Gregory Rousseau was hunting, too. The whole defensive line seemed to feed off the energy. Even on plays where Bosa didn't get the sack, he opened up lanes for teammates to make stops. The linebackers were flying. The secondary tightened up. You could feel the collective will of the Jets' offense slowly evaporating. And let's not act like the Jets came into this game looking like scrubs. They moved the ball pretty well in Week 1. There was some optimism around their offense. That optimism lasted, 5 minutes? Because what the Bills did wasn't just dominate physically. They broke the Jets mentally. It was the kind of defensive performance that saps the life out of a team. You saw it in their body language. You saw it in the MetLife crowd, or the lack of one. The stadium was quiet, and not just because Bills fans showed up in numbers. It was silent because the game felt over early. And in a place that's given Josh Allen some of his roughest games, he finally got to play comfortable, under control, and confident. No house of horrors this time. Speaking of Allen, while this wasn't a highlight reel game, it was exactly what the Bills needed from him. Efficient, controlled, and steady. Yeah, there were a couple of throws that made you wince, one into coverage to Kean, another slant that could have been picked, but overall, Josh was sharp. And what really stood out was how he used his weapons. Tight ends? All involved. He found Dalton Kincaid, Dawson Knox, and even cooked up a couple plays to Elijah Moore, who made it a point to ball out in a stadium he used to call home. Moore looked fast, confident, and you could tell he had this one circled on the calendar. And let's talk about James Cook, because this guy was a problem. He ran angry. He ran with purpose. He ran through tackles. He showed off that filthy cutback ability and then hit the burners. His touchdown run was a masterpiece. Great blocking up front, Yes, but what he did in the open field turned a solid 9-yard gain into a game breaker. And that's exactly why the Bills have stuck with him. Because he's not just a back who can grind out 3 yards. He's a playmaker. He's a home run hitter. And on a night when the defense stole the show, Cook made sure the offense did more than just hold its own. Let's not forget what Mitch Trubisky did either. I know, backup QB coming in for one play doesn't sound like a big deal. But it was 3rd down, it was a tight window throw, and he delivered. That's what you want from your number 2. Ready when called. No excuses, no panic. He stepped in, threw a dart to Josh Palmer, and kept the drive alive. Simple as that. Maybe he won't be needed again this season, but in a league where backups matter more than ever, that kind of moment matters. And Josh, bloodied, bandaged, and still smiling, came right back into the game with Kleenex stuffed up his nose and went back to work. No blue tint, no panic, just grit. It was almost comical watching him run out with gauze hanging out of his nostrils like some kind of gladiator. But that's what this team feeds off. That energy, that edge, that we're not done yet mentality. It's contagious. And in a game where the Jets clearly lost their will to fight, the Bills kept swinging. Even the small things made a difference. Cole Bishop, young guy, flying around, getting a sack, drawing a flag, almost drawing another. He was active. The physicality was there. The edge was real. This was not the same defense we saw in Week 1. They played angry. They played fast. And they finished. From start to finish, this was a statement, not just to the Jets, but to the rest of the league. The Bills don't need a miracle comeback every week. Sometimes they just need to remind you how complete this team can be when the defense leads the way. What made this win even more impressive was the fact that it didn't rely on any one superstar moment. It was methodical. It was precise. It was controlled. There wasn't a sudden pick six or some fluke special teams play that flipped the game. It was a slow, steady squeeze that never let the Jets breathe. The Bills didn't just win on the scoreboard. They won in the trenches, in the secondary, in the film room. They outcoached, out-executed, and outfought their opponent. And that kind of win sends a louder message than any late-game comeback. It tells the rest of the league that Buffalo is deep, physical, and when they're locked in, they don't need flash. They just need 48 minutes to wear you down. There was a moment late in the second quarter with the Jets trying to get anything going where it just felt like they were running on fumes. They weren't just outmatched, they looked disinterested. Garrett Wilson couldn't find space, the offensive line was getting bullied, and Zach Wilson, filling in for the injured Fields, looked like a deer in headlights. And the coaching decisions? Puzzling at best. Down by 3 touchdowns, they settle for a long field goal. Later, they punt on 4th down with the clock winding. It was like they weren't even trying to win, just trying to survive. And Buffalo smelled it. They didn't let up. There was no letdown in energy, no shift to cruise control. The Bills kept the pressure on, kept driving, and eventually they broke what little resistance the Jets had left. One of the most underappreciated parts of this game was how Buffalo's offensive line handled the trenches. This is a Jets defensive front that's supposed to be among the best in the league. Big names, aggressive schemes, and yet, outside of a couple early pressures, they were handled. O'Cyrus Torrence, the rookie, played like a vet. That touchdown run by James Cook, it doesn't happen without Torrence sealing the edge and giving Cook just enough daylight. From there, it was just vision and speed. But that block, that was a statement. And you could see the offensive line feeding off that momentum. They weren't just pass protecting, they were dictating. Josh Allen deserves credit not just for his play, but for his poise. Yeah, the numbers weren't eye-popping, but his decision-making? Sharp. He checked into the right plays. He took what the defense gave him. And when things got messy, he didn't force it. That's the kind of maturity people have been asking for. He still had those Josh Allen moments, a hurdle here, a stiff arm there, but they were calculated. He wasn't playing hero ball. He was playing winning football. And there's a difference. He let the run game breathe. He trusted his tight ends. He distributed the ball to whoever was open. And that kind of trust makes this offense even more dangerous. Because now it's not just Keon Coleman or Dalton Kincaid. It's everyone. It's a system, not a one-man show. And how about Elijah Moore? Inactive last week, coming into his old stadium and delivering. He had that look in his eyes from the first drive, like he wasn't leaving without making an impact. He was the gadget guy, the motion man, the underneath threat. Think of him like a younger, twitchier Isaiah McKenzie. That role might be limited, but it matters, especially when you've got someone who embraces it. His touchdown celebration, firing the ball into the crowd like he was sending a message. And maybe he was. After the game, he said it felt good to be back, to score, to win. You could tell it meant something. And clearly, it meant something to Sean McDermott, too, who went out of his way to shout Elijah out after the game. A rare move for the usually poker-faced coach. Defensively, it was about more than just Boza. Guys like Tre'Davious White stepped up. Benford had a couple big-time plays. Cole Bishop flew around and played with an edge that this defense sorely needed after getting pushed around in Week 1. Even when he drew that flag for unnecessary roughness, it felt like the right kind of penalty, the kind that says, "We're here. We're not backing down." And yes, he nearly got another one on a late hit, but that aggression was refreshing. It looked like this unit was tired of being questioned, and they responded. Whether it was blowing up a reverse, stuffing the run, or collapsing the pocket, the Bills were faster, stronger, and meaner. They played with a chip, and you need that over a 17-game season. The stadium itself told the story. MetLife was dead, and not because it was empty. There were plenty of people there. But there was no noise, no juice. Bills fans were louder than Jets fans all night. And it didn't feel like an away game. It felt like a takeover. And maybe that's what this team is becoming. A team that doesn't just win. A team that invades. That sucks the life out of opposing crowds and leaves with your dignity. It's still early, but this felt like a mature team. One that doesn't play with its food. One that understands when to finish the job. Even on the plays that didn't go their way, you saw effort. You saw hustle. There was a point where Quinnen Williams broke into the backfield, and Josh Allen, for a split second, looked like he might try to block him to protect James Cook. Then he thought better of it, made the smart business decision, and stepped aside. Little moments like that show a quarterback who knows when to take the hit and when to let it go. It's leadership. It's growth. The Bills' offense also deserves credit for sticking to the plan. Joe Brady didn't overcomplicate things. He didn't panic when the Jets brought pressure. He leaned into the run game, used short throws to control the tempo, and open up the playbook when the time was right. That kind of discipline from the play caller is what you need when the defense is dominating. Don't force things. Don't go searching for style points. Just play to your identity. And that identity? Balanced, physical, and unselfish. On third downs, everyone got involved. Allen found his guys when it mattered. Palmer, Knox, Kincaid, Cook, they all contributed. It felt like a veteran offense playing chess while the Jets were stuck playing checkers. And if you're looking for signs that this team is built for more than just regular season fireworks, this game was it. The defense set the tone. The offense executed. The coaching staff made the right calls. And the backups? They were ready. Mitch Trubisky didn't flinch. Bishop made plays. The young guys on the defensive line showed up. It was top to bottom. Clean, organized, efficient. And it's the kind of performance that builds confidence in the locker room. Not the fake kind that comes from pulling off a miracle. The real kind that comes from punching a division rival in the mouth and never letting them up. Before we dive back in, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Your support helps us keep delivering the latest Buffalo Bills updates straight to your screen. And hey, don't hold back. Let us know your thoughts on today's news down in the comments. Shockwaves are rippling through the NFL as rumors swirl around one of the league's most unexpected moves of the season. Mitchell Trubisky is reportedly on the move. Sources close to the situation suggest that the quarterback, who has spent a turbulent yet promising stint with the Buffalo Bills, is suddenly off the roster in what insiders are calling a stunning negotiation. While official confirmation is still pending, the news has already sent fans and analysts into a frenzy, speculating about the possible destination for the 27-year-old signal caller. Trubisky, who joined the Bills with hopes of revitalizing his career, seemed to have settled into Buffalo's dynamic offense. However, whispers of behind-the-scenes discussions between the players' camp and team management began circulating earlier this week, hinting at a potential shakeup. The nature of the deal remains unclear, but sources suggest that the negotiation could involve a multi-team exchange or even a strategic roster move aimed at salary cap flexibility. Whatever the mechanism, the sense of urgency surrounding Trubisky's exit has caught the league by surprise. Buffalo fans are left speculating whether this sudden turn signals a new direction for the team's quarterback strategy. Analysts are pointing to a mix of performance considerations and broader franchise ambitions as possible motives behind the abrupt decision. Some insiders believe the Bills may be positioning themselves to acquire a fresh talent or pivot toward a more aggressive offensive scheme, while others hint that Trubisky himself may have played a role in seeking a team where he could assume a leading position. Meanwhile, Trubisky's potential suitors are already the subject of fevered debate. Teams with quarterback needs are reportedly monitoring the situation closely, eager to capitalize on an opportunity to acquire a player with starting experience and untapped potential. The rumor mill is rife with speculation, from playoff contenders looking to strengthen their depth chart to rebuilding teams hoping for a mid-season spark. Social media has exploded with fan theories, memes, and hot takes, underscoring the magnitude of what could become one of the most talked-about moves of the year. As the story develops, the NFL world watches with bated breath. Will Trubisky land with a team ready to resurrect his career, or is this just the beginning of a more complex series of trades and negotiations? One thing is certain: the Bills' locker room will never look quite the same, and the ripple effects of this potential move could be felt across the league for months to come. That's a wrap for now. If you enjoyed the video and want to stay on top of all things Buffalo Bills, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button. We'd love to hear what you think in the comments. See you in the next update.